Hey guys, wanted to do this video this week. So there was some big news. Zeke Elliott's back this week. That's not big news. You guys can play him if you want, but I'm not going to. And but Tampa Bay, Miami. Hopefully, if you guys got family down there, they're safe. But that game's going to be postponed till their bye week on week 11. That's pretty big news. So I want to do this video before NFL season kicks off. Mostly because my last video actually got more views than I thought. 706, but who's counting? So realize some people actually watch this stuff. So give a little bit more insight on more of my picks instead of doing a super long video. This one's going to be more about quarterbacks, wide receivers, and then I'll throw a little bit of stacks in there. The biggest question this week has been Bell, Johnson. How do you play them both? So I'm not going to focus, like I said, on the running backs, but I will give you some cheap wide receivers as well as some stacks to get you off of those pivot plays and how else you can play them, and throw little stats on there, see if that helps anything out. I talked about this a lot on my last video, but Carson Palmer, number 9 offense total last year, number 9 offense passing last year, so not bad. Weird stat was they actually scored more points on the road compared to at home. They're averaging 26.9 points away, so almost 4 touchdowns away, and they had a hurt offensive line. They still got a bad offensive line, but they're healthy. And they had a hurt wide receiver core. Now you got everyone's completely healthy with a better defense. I don't see why they shouldn't score 27, 28 points on the road this week. And when you're probably scoring 28 points on the road this week, I'm going to want a piece of that. So Carson Palmer, his last 3 weeks, last season, he was averaging 31 points, or the Arizona Cardinals offense were, I'm sorry. So their offense were scoring 31 points last 3 weeks. I mean, that's pretty massive. In order to make David Johnson less chalky, you can stack Palmer with David Johnson, meaning stack is just you're taking multiple players from the same team. Any high-winning lineup, not all of them, but a lot of high-winning lineups have stacks. So the most common winning stacks, you're going to have quarterback, wide receiver, and then you like to have quarterback, running back, which is a little less played. But if you're thinking if you get these pass catching backs, Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, Carson Palmer, David Johnson, that way you get access to the full aerial attack as well as the running game. And if Carson Palmer or Big Ben throws a touchdown to the running back, that just gave you way more points because everyone's playing Bell or Johnson, and you just got the extra points with Palmer or Roethlisberger. So that's one way to attack this week's slate because everyone's going to be doing Bell Johnson. So that'll offset the cost of David Johnson as well because Carson Palmer is so cheap, and that gives you the Arizona Cardinals offense, gives you access to that, which it's not run first, it's throw first, and they stretch the field. It's a horizontal attack. So I'm going to be stacking Palmer with David Johnson as well as Arizona defense, but I'm not really going to talk about defense at all this video, but I am going to be playing Arizona defense in a good bit. So I really like Carson Palmer this week. These two guys are both pretty much the same this week, price-wise, ownership-wise, everything. Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota. I was very interested in the home road splits on quarterbacks, period. That's always important to know. And Derek Carr is pretty much 1 point off. He's 1 point higher at home than he is away. But he got 11 fantasy points last year against Tennessee in Tennessee, and Marcus Mariota got 4 at home against Oakland. I just don't see that being the case this year. Improved teams, great offenses. A lot of people are just saying this is a coin flip. Mariota's home and away split, 16 at home, 19 away. So it's not very good when you're looking at 16 points at home. But it all depends on the teams he played at home as well, and injuries and all that. So he had a real rough schedule at the end of the year, but it just depends on how you want to pick them. Mariota has the potential to get you those rushing yards, which is huge. Carr has no potential to get you rushing yards, and that is huge. But at the same time, Mariota is that offense is going to run the ball. Derek Carr and the Raiders. The Raiders run the ball a lot as well, but the Titans offense is going to run the ball right up the middle. And I like DeMarco Murray a lot this week. That's another one of those quarterback or wide receiver stacks. to where you get that running back. I mean, quarterback, running back, to where you still get access to, if the quarterback dumps it off to the running back, you still get access to that pass if he gets a touchdown. So that's another one of those wide receiver running back stacks. But as for Carr, Mariota, if the Raiders get down in this game, Carr's going to throw. Although the Titans, they have a better defense, I believe, than the Raiders. They can be attacked through the air, but they improved in the secondary, and they get to hold the ball a little bit more with that ground game. I just don't see Marshawn Lynch taking a year off, being 31 years old, coming back week 1, and being able to just run the ball just fine. I don't see it. I think Carr's going to have to throw a little bit more, and then Mariota's not going to have to throw as much because he gets to run. So you give the nod to Derek Carr a little bit more. Carr is easier to stack as well with the wide receiver. Mariota, you can stack with Delaney Walker, but Carr is going to be easier to stack because he really only has 2 wide receivers. They don't utilize much tight ends. They don't really throw too much to wide receivers. So when it comes down to Derek Carr, it's Michael Crabtree and Amari Cooper, and I'll go over them later. But they're both going to be highly owned, and I'm okay with not rostering them a lot. They're good for cash. They're good for GPP. It's going to be a very high-scoring game, and when the Raiders are behind, they're going to throw. So you got those fourth-quarter comebacks from Carr. Their defense hasn't really improved too much, especially their run defense. Titans are going to be able to control the clock. Mariota's not going to have to throw as much. I'll give the nod to Carr for fantasy in more of a GPP format, but Mariota more of a cash format. They're both priced the same. They're both implied total. It's relatively the same. You're fine with either of them. But if you want to fade those two, feel free. Like there's no problem there. Kirk Cousins is right around there with another decent ceiling. That's just going to have so much less ownership because Philly Eagles giving up like 21 points last year, 240 yards in the air. It's not as good as a matchup. People are loving Carson Wentz. No one's really talking about Kirk Cousins. He had 2 20-point games against Philly last year, so that's really all you're looking for. You're looking for your quarterback who can get 20 points. That's good. That's good. So I want to have a problem with that. If you want to fade Mariota and Carr, I would go to Kirk Cousins, low ownership, high ceiling, good floor. So I'd be fine with that. Aaron Rodgers, it just depends on who you talk to. Once again, he's going up against Seattle. Last year, he had 21 fantasy points against Seattle. So is that worth his price? And he's the highest ceiling quarterback in the league. He's going up against a tough defense. People aren't going to play him. Anytime you can get the number 1 quarterback fantasy-wise against a tough defense where it's low ownership, you play him. But because of his ceiling, he's always a GPP play. Because of his ceiling, or because of his floor, he's always a cash play. But you got his price, you got to factor in. Second highest on FanDuel at 8,300, and third highest on DraftKings with 7K. So for a quarterback, the general rule of thumb, you want to more than double. So times your price, 8.3 times 2.5, and that's how many points you want. So is he going to score 25 points in FanDuel and 21 on DK? He absolutely is going to score 21 on DraftKings. Yeah, that's fine. He's the third highest on DraftKings. He's going to get you that 2.5 points. I got no problem with him on DraftKings at all. He's going to be a little bit lighter owned because he's playing against Seattle. But yeah, that once again, if you want to get off this Carr, Mariota, chalk bandwagon, then you get to play the number 1 fantasy quarterback in the league with low ownership and a way higher ceiling than Mariota or Carr. So, and he can still run too. So you still got those yards for running. And then who's he going up against? Russell Wilson. This is another one that it depends on who you talk to, because Russell Wilson is theoretically, historically not good against Dom Capers' defenses. He's played against him before. He's never done well. Seattle also averages 16 points on the road last year. Yes, last year, but their offense really hasn't changed. Their offensive line has only gotten worse somehow, I would say. Rawls is going to be the starter. I like Thomas Rawls, but I don't think that their 3-headed monster they're trying to do back there in the backfield is going to, especially with this Eddie Lacy drama script, going to feed him the ball. I don't know. Pete Carroll's that kind of coach. He's going to want to give him a touchdown. I don't like the running game in this at all because Pete Carroll will try to give Eddie Lacy that touchdown against his former team. Okay, thanks. That just hurt Thomas Rawls. Eddie Lacy probably 30, 40 yards and a touchdown. Thomas Rawls 40, 50 yards. Nothing really there. Green Bay was good against the run last year, whether you say it was, well, they got to throw a lot against Green Bay to keep up opposing teams, or they just didn't go up against great running backs. Ezekiel Elliott tore him up, and a few others, but regardless, they were good against the run. However you want to say it, if it's because of their offense or not, they were still good against the run. So I actually do like Russell Wilson a little bit. I'm not going to do too much high exposure to him because, yeah, he was horrible against Seattle last year. I mean, he threw 5 interceptions. You don't even think that's realistic. He sounds like one of my quarterbacks over here. But, yeah, throws 5 interceptions. He's never done too well against them except, the NFC Championship game. He didn't do anything against the fourth quarter, you can't take that away from him. But the matchup, you got Kevin King, Demarius Randall, I believe, Green Bay secondary. Kevin King's a rookie. Randall, decent corner, nothing great. Doug Baldwin has the advantage. Russell Wilson knows it. Green Bay is also going to have to try to commit to stopping Jimmy Graham, and the run game is going to be there enough to keep them honest. So it's a very high scoring total. And once again, you got a mobile quarterback with a bad offensive line. He can get you those running yards. That's huge. And then he's going to have to throw to keep in with Green Bay, keep it close. And the wide receiver quarterback, the matchup is so good that I'm going to have some exposure to Russell Wilson. You can play him in both GPP and cash. I like him in both because he's got a decent floor. He's got a high ceiling, and if he keeps those interceptions underneath, if he can get over that Dom Capers hump, then yeah, you got Russell Wilson, who did amazing towards a lot. Other than that Green Bay game, he did amazing towards the end of the season last year. So, but once again, I just named off 4 quarterbacks, one of which, Carson Palmer, I really like. The other 4 were just, here's some different insight on them, but a lot of people are going to use Carr, Mariota. You can use Rodgers or Wilson. But this guy, Tyrod Taylor, played the Jets once last year and got 23 points. Another mobile quarterback. I like those mobile quarterbacks. Jets potentially improved their secondary, but they're still starting 2 rookie safeties. Also, their new cornerback is Maurice Claiborne, who had a great year last year, but it's a brand new system for him. And went to school with the kid, but Buster Skrine is a slot. He's going to be your nickel cornerback or your number 2 corner. And he got 8 up there. Luckily, he won't watch this video, but he was getting eaten up a good bit in the slot or the number 2 corner, whatever they put him as. So, although I have faith in those two safeties and Maurice Claiborne, I think he'll be fine. It's an improved secondary, but it's still 2 rookies starting in their very first game. I think Tyrod Taylor's a great fantasy quarterback. I like him as a quarterback, period, but I think he's a great fantasy quarterback, and I think he will be low-owned. He had scare with concussion protocol. People don't like the Bills right now. They're getting rid of all their players. They're just not really looking into him. Not a lot of offensive weapons. I think he's going to be very low-owned, and he's got you a high ceiling. And every game he played that he was healthy, he seemed to have a great floor too. So I will be playing Tyrod Taylor in cash. I'll be playing him in GPP as well. I won't be rostering him too much. I'm going to have medium exposure, but I think his ownership's going to be down, and he's going to get you those. He's going to give you a solid floor with a very high ceiling to at least keep you competitive. And his price is low, and he's one of those different quarterbacks other than Carr and Mariota that give you some sort of competitive advantage due to ownership. So Kirk Cousins, Tyrod Taylor, and Carson Palmer, I really like those 3 because everyone's playing Carr, Mariota, and I feel like those guys have the same ceiling, a little bit higher, and they're also Rodgers. Anytime you can get that kind of quarterback for pretty cheap on DraftKings, you get them. I like them way more on DraftKings than I do FanDuel. These are quarterbacks that it's not so much that I dislike or like or anything. It's just different insight. A lot of people are talking about them. One's Matt Ryan for Chicago, new offensive coordinator. I talk a lot about that. I think Kyle Shanahan's very good. Chicago was a number 7 defense last year with a bunch of injuries. Now they're all healthy on the defensive side. His price on FanDuel is $8,500. So he needs a 26-point game to justify that. I'm not seeing it. Not on the road. Yeah, they were putting up, I think it was 28 points on the road last year, different coordinator. Week 1 on the road against a good defense, I'm not seeing him put up 26 points. But, I mean, because of his price, you get him at a low ownership. So you could play, if you're going to play him, because of his price, I wouldn't play him in cash games because you can use a cheaper quarterback to give you access to those running backs. That's anytime you can get Bell and Johnson in cash, you do it. You can't get Matt Ryan with Bell or Johnson as your running back. So I think he's a tournament play. I don't see him being high ownership because of his price, but I don't see him getting 26 points for that $8,500 on FanDuel. I forgot his DraftKings price. I think he's the second highest or something. I know Big Ben's up there. Aaron Rodgers is the third. I think he's second. So either way, I'm not seeing him justify that price. I like other quarterbacks better. Cam Newton, they have a new running back. Jonathan Stewart's healthy. They took away his goal line touches. They're limiting his run plays, which was a majority of his points. I don't like them. San Francisco, people picked on them last year with the running backs, just whatever running back played against San Fran, you played against. So although he's still Cam Newton. He had a bad year. He's not the most accurate quarterback. He never has been. He's been a mobile, just freak athlete. But I think San Fran, they got some athletic linebackers, very good linebackers. They're just young. So I don't expect Carolina to come in here and just dominate this defense. They're very athletic. And I'm saying that for a reason because Cam Newton's not going to be able to just run all over these guys. So, yeah, I don't care for that. I think he's overprojected. If you look at ESPN, I try to take into account everyone's projections and different opinions. If you look at ESPN, he's the second highest. I think he's tied for number 1 fantasy quarterbacks this week at 19. Depends on your league. But I think it's him and Aaron Rodgers are up there at 19. But he's not going to get you those rushing touchdowns, those yards on the ground that he used to. I don't like him. They gave him a new running back that they can use. So they were going to get Christian McCaffrey in an early draft no matter what. So there's a reason they were going to do that and then grab Curtis Samuel. They don't want Cam Newton running around everywhere like he used to. So spent too much time on that anyway. Big Ben, yeah, on the road, he's horrible. Everyone knows that. He's top priced in DraftKings. He's third priced on FanDuel. Because of these horrible road splits, people aren't liking him. He did pick apart the Redskins week 1 on the road last year for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. So he has 2 massive games on the road last year, and I think it was 2 decent ones and then some atrocious ones. They don't play as fast. You don't get the same amount of plays. The road, I don't know. It's multiple different things. Usually the plays, amount of plays per game. But, yeah, Big Ben on the road isn't as great. I'm going to use that to my advantage. I know a lot of people are completely fading him. They're not playing him at all. And, I agree. I'm not going to say no to you, but they're still playing Cleveland. Yeah, he had a horrible game against Cleveland last year. I'm sorry. I just don't see him having 2 horrible games against Cleveland. And everyone's like, well, Bell's going to get 30 touches a game. I agree, but this is the Steelers offense. So I think every year they try to go for like 32 points a game. That's what Todd Haley, their offensive coordinator, used to be. That's what he strives for. And last year, it wasn't nearly that high, but they were 28 points at home, 21 away. I'm pretty sure they can score more than 21 points away against Cleveland, even though they're a better team than they were last year. Still a bunch of rookies, and they're still Cleveland. So, and they did draft offense as well, not all defense. So I think Big Ben is a sneaky pick. I just don't like his price at all. But I will play him in a couple GPPs, a couple tournaments. I'm going to use him just because no one will. And I'll tell you who I'm going to stack him with later. But no one's going to like him because of his road splits. Use that to your advantage. Anytime, like I always say, you can get an elite quarterback in low ownership, and he goes off like he normally does, then you have a massive advantage. But yes, I'm afraid of his road splits, but I'm still going to use him in some tournaments, not in anything. No cash. He's too expensive. But and this next one, Carson Wentz, a lot of people love Wentz this year. I like him this year. He's got a slightly improved wide receiver core. Torrey Smith, an aging Torrey Smith, Nelson Aguilar, you guys do know they made a GoFundMe, Philly fans. You guys are ruthless. Made a GoFundMe to get rid of Nelson Aguilar last year, and now you guys are loving him. I don't know. I liked him coming out of college. And y'all got Alshon Jeffrey, Mr. Injury, but if he's healthy, he's Alshon Jeffrey. We just don't know if he can be healthy. But Josh Norman wasn't a great cornerback in zone coverage or different coverage schemes, but he was a great cornerback on one-on-ones, doing his little shadow coverage when he plays, just focuses in on one guy. He was a great cornerback. He is when he does that. So he's going to be, they already said, shattering Alshon Jeffrey. Alshon's got size on him, but Josh Norman is an amazing cornerback when he plays this one-on-one type defense. So you just took away the best weapon offensively that they have. Yeah, I know they got Zach Ertz. I really like him, but guess what? So does every single person that's playing DraftKings this week because of his price. So you take away the number one wide receiver in that offense. I don't really care for their ground game. Then, yeah, I don't really want too much to do with them. His highest fantasy week last year was 21 points. That was his highest. His average is 14. You can't win anything with that. So he might have a better wide receiver core. It's still week 1. Yeah, the Redskins defense isn't great, but I just don't. I'm not going to play him this week. I like Zach Ertz, but everyone's going to play him on DraftKings. So, and I'll go over that in my next video, running back tight ends. So a lot of quarterbacks. I'm not going to talk about all the quarterbacks. I don't like when people do videos and they list like 12 quarterbacks. And they're like, oh, yeah, they could all have good games. And then they list 4 more that, oh, yeah, they could too. It's like, well, no, you're never going to be wrong. You just listed everyone. So really my guys are Carson Palmer. I like Kirk Cousins as a fade off of Cara Mariota. I like Rodgers and Tyrod Taylor. So those are my main guys. And that way I'm actually saying, and then I'm going to try to sneak in a Big Ben lineup. I'm not going to play Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, Carson Wentz. I'm not even going to play too much of Mariota or Carr because I think they're going to get you 18 points apiece, and everyone's going to play them. And I'm going to try to get 19 or 20 points from a Kirk Cousins with less ownership, or Tyrod Taylor with some mobile, or maybe a little bit of Russell Wilson. So that's all. There's a lot of bad matchups for quarterbacks, or there's just downright a lot of quarterbacks just don't have the talent right now, it seems. So that I'm didn't go too in-depth on all those quarterbacks, just said who I like. The rest of them that I didn't talk about, I don't really care for. I went over Brian Hoyer before, but yeah, I'm not going to go over anymore. For wide receivers, the big names, Antonio Brown, AJ Green, Julio Jones. So a lot of people are trying to pick who to play from these guys. And with Antonio Brown, I don't think he's going to be highly owned just because the Big Ben road splits. Sorry, I had to turn off the oven, burning my food. But Big Ben road splits. But once again, anytime you can get the best wide receiver in the league in low ownership, why not? If I can get Antonio Brown for low ownership, I'm going to play him. So the last thing I want is after the game on Sunday, everyone's like, oh, wow, Big Ben and Antonio and all the Steelers just crushed the Browns. How did we not see that coming because of Big Ben's road splits? I'm still going to have a little bit of exposure. And that's what I don't want to lose because I didn't play a stud player in an easy matchup. So, yeah, Big Ben had one horrible, ugly game against Cleveland. Don't think he's going to do it again. It's week 1. He's fully healthy. His O-line's fully healthy. He's got Bell back. He's got Bryant. He's got Brown. Brown and Bryant, they both play well together. Yeah, that was 2015. It's a pretty common fact that Brown did amazing with Bryant on the field. So I'll dive into a little bit different stats later when I talk about Bryant. But, yeah, Antonio Brown has a massive ceiling. He's got a great floor. I'm going to use him a little bit. Low ownership on the best wide receiver in the league. AJ Green, he's a huge chalk play. I didn't like him at all. Now there's no Mike Evans and Odell's gimpy. He's hurt. Alshon Jeffrey is going to be corner covered. So Julio's got a new offensive coordinator, and people are afraid of Antonio Brown for some reason because of Big Ben's road splits. So AJ Green's getting this massive ownership. I didn't really like him at the beginning of the week because I never thought he was good against Baltimore. Historically, I thought Baltimore would shut him down. I'd have to look back into it because I know last year he was hurt, but I always thought that against Baltimore, they always shut him down well. But it is AJ Green. He's Mr. Consistent, and he's fully healthy, coming off of a injury last year where he was pretty bummed about not hitting 1,000 yards. He's amazing. They got Joe Mixon at running back. Don't be confused. Like, Jeremy Hill's still back there. Remember, this happened with Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, Gio Bernard, and then Jeremy Hill got drafted. Now Jeremy Hill, and they got Joe Mixon. Do they just not know how to run or draft running backs, or do they draft the right ones and not develop them? I don't know, but I don't think they have much of a ground game still. It's just some sort of mix, and they all get touches and carries and catches, and it's a mess. Tyler Eifert's fully healthy. Baltimore's a really, really good defense. I don't care for Tyler Eifert, but I'm going to play AJ Green just because so many people like him. I don't really care for him against Baltimore, but I can't lose to people when they're all rostering AJ Green. And it is AJ Green. I like him a lot. I just respect Baltimore's defense. So I didn't like him at the beginning of the week, but if everyone's going to play him, I'm not going to lose. Just because I don't have AJ Green, I am going to play. He's both a cash play and GPP, so you can use him in both the tournament or small tournaments and heads up, whatever, 50-50s, whatever you play. I think he's Mr. Consistent, like I said, so I would favor him more in a cash lineup. I don't think he has the highest ceiling compared to Antonio or Julio, but because he's usually priced right around with them, but he's still AJ Green. So Julio Jones, he's fully healthy. He's got a new offensive coordinator who isn't going to use him as a decoy in the end zone. So it's good, it's bad. Matt Ryan used to force the ball to Julio. They used to be playing close games or from behind. I don't see that necessarily happening week 1 against Chicago, but it'll be interesting to see how they use Julio Jones week 1. I think it'll be fine. I think Chicago has a good defense, like I said, fully healthy. I don't think Julio is going to be force-fed the ball, but I do think he's going to get 10, 12 targets just because that new offense, that new coordinator, it's not going to be spread around play action as much. So I actually do like Julio. And once again, that ceiling is massive, but you also got these games. Like I said, you got 9 stud games last year, 6 duds. And that's what's scary with Julio. So I am not going to have high exposure to him, but I am going to sprinkle him in my lineups. These are the middle tier price wide receivers that I like. And these are the ones that people are really interested in because of Bell and Johnson. So they're trying to find out, hey, who can buy wide receiver 1B at a decent price? So Doug Baldwin, Larry Fitzgerald, Terrell Pryor, Rashard Matthews, and Martavis Bryant. Doug Baldwin has an amazing wide receiver cornerback match. I talked about that earlier. He's got a decent price, high scoring implication. Just the Seattle offense on the road averaged 16 points last year. That's really scary. Dom Capers, the Green Bay's defensive coordinator, has always had a good game plan against Russell Wilson. I still like Doug Baldwin's matchup, and his price is still good. He's got a really high ceiling. So I think he's playable because of his price and matchup. He's playable in both cash and GPP. And if you want to use Bell and Johnson and still have a strong tournament wide receiver 1 that can go off for a little bit, I would play Doug Baldwin. Larry Fitzgerald, he's a constant target monster, so more of a DraftKings. Solid price, middle price, so not too heavy. Everyone was hurt last year, so he got a lot more targets than I think he should have. But he's got a great wide receiver cornerback matchup. As someone who's that talented and athletic and now experienced playing the slot, you usually don't get the best cornerback matchup, so he's always mismatched. But he gets red zone targets. That's the biggest thing. He's worth a roster in cash and slight ownership in GPP, more so in DraftKings. He doesn't have this highest ceiling, but he does give you that pivot off of David Johnson. And my biggest thing is if Antonio Brown or Martavis Bryant or John Brown or Larry Fitzgerald get a touchdown and you didn't roster Bell or Johnson, you just took away a touchdown from them and you rostered one of these guys that did get a touchdown, it's a massive, massive advantage in your lineup. So I like Fitzgerald more so in DraftKings, but I'm going to use him a little bit more in DraftKings in my cash lineups, not so much my GPPs. That's John Brown, who I'm going to use in my GPPs, but I'll talk about him with cheap guys. Terrell Pryor, passing offense, mismatch on sides. Talked about this in my last video. Ronald Darby's covering him. Pretty good corner, but size-wise isn't there. Kirk Cousins is going to throw. He likes him. Yeah, you can pivot off of Jamison Crowder, but Terrell Pryor's got his price. Why would you fade him? He's so cheap, and he's gonna do well. I don't see him doing bad with that matchup, and it should be a decent scoring game. I expect him to have a very solid game, but because of his price, even with the chalk, I'm not going to fade him. I'm going to play him in both cash and GPP once again because of his price. So he's a solid pick in both formats. He's got a great matchup, everything about it. So, and if Philly can score against that Washington defense, as they should, then great. Terrell Pryor is going to have to get more targets, so I like it. Rashard Matthews, this is GPP only. He's more of a boomer bust, home run. Yeah, he was great, pretty consistent last year, but you got to understand Titans have a lot of mouths to feed. They got a two-headed monster in the backfield. They got a great tight end, and now you got Corey Davis, Eric Decker. I mean, they had so many wide receivers they didn't even know who to cut. So they got Tajay Sharp is on IR, but you got Rashard Matthews, Corey Davis, Eric Decker with a stud tight end with two running backs. That they tend to run the ball more than they throw, or pretty 50-50 split, which is rare nowadays in the NFL. So yeah, GPP only, but he can take it to the house, and I don't see too many people playing him, but he gives you access to that game with a high scoring implication. And you don't need to stack him with Mariota. If you don't want to play Mariota, you could play Carr with Rashard Matthews, or you could play another one of those quarterbacks that I suggested with Rashard Matthews, still give you that access in a GPP. Then yeah, I'm going to have low exposure to him because the amount of mouths to feed in that offense because of all the other potential threats in that offense. But I think he is worth a spot in some of your tournaments for his price as well. Martavis Bryant, he's going to be highly owned. I don't see this being like people don't know about Martavis Bryant. Like, no, everyone knows that he was good when he was there. He's got an amazing postseason or off season, and he's playing the Browns, and the Browns are probably going to try to bring a safety over the top to Antonio, which isn't going to matter. But Bryant should have one-on-one matchups. He should have. He has a massive height and speed advantage. So, regardless of Big Ben's road struggles, if you can get the Steelers should score either way. I don't see Big Ben not throwing a touchdown. I see him throwing a couple touchdowns and Bell running one in their defense pretty much holding Cleveland to under 17 points, and Steelers not really having to do too much to score on offense. But I still see Bryant being a solid pivot play if you don't want to use Bell in all your lineups and you still want access to Steelers, or if you want to stack Big Ben in a tournament play where, yeah, people are like, well, you're an idiot. Big Ben sucks on the road. It's like, yeah, he doesn't suck every game, and it's still the Browns, and you now get access to Steelers and Big Ben, Bryant, and that offsets Ben's price. Or if you don't want to use Big Ben, you can use Bell Bryant. Instead of Brown, you could pivot off of Brown, try to get Bryant, and now you have Bell Bryant, and hopefully Brown doesn't do as well, and you get that touchdown from Bryant. And if Bryant scores anywhere close to Brown and you have Bell as well, that's massive. Or I like Brown, David Johnson. So different ways, like I said, just different insights to where you can try to mix and match your lineup, because so many people are playing Mariota, Carr, David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell. How can you get a piece of these offenses while still being different? And that's how you differentiate yourself. That's how you win. So, and then these guys, this is John Brown. I speak about him a lot. I like him. Anytime he's healthy, he was extremely useful. Top 25 wide receiver when he was healthy. He got sickle cell. It's contained now, or I don't know much about sickle cell, but he's good to go. That's all I know. So I know he was pretty much sick with that last year, but beforehand he was amazing. Now he's good to go. I like Palmer this week. And John Brown, his price makes David Johnson or Le'Veon Bell, he makes those guys available. Also, I like that stack, John Brown, Carson Palmer. I'll talk more about stacks later, but anything, if David Johnson, if he doesn't have this massive game and John Brown gets 1-2 touchdowns, that's going to limit David Johnson. Yeah, they're just going to run it off at the end just to beat clock, but if John Brown is getting touchdowns, David Johnson's not, your ownership on John Brown should be 3% to 6%. David Johnson looking like 30%. Yeah, you just jumped the competition. So I really like it. Palmer can throw the ball. Brown gets a big touchdown play. They should score just fine. I think they're going to score 28 points. I like Brown right here. So this is a home run shot. People probably don't even know who this guy is. I'll be honest, I had to look into it. But Trent Taylor, I was just trying to figure out because they cut Jeremy Curley. They brought him back to the Jets, which I kind of saw that coming. But Trent Taylor was the guy they drafted. He's a slot wide receiver for San Fran. He's minimum priced. So before you throw up or tell me I'm an idiot, I know he's minimum priced. I'm barely going to use him. He's a home run guy. If you want, and this is more for like insight to your lineups, like I said, to get you Bell and Johnson or to differentiate. If you want to play Bell Johnson and you're picking and choosing and digging for a wide receiver 3, you cannot find anyone. He's minimum priced. He's got a great cornerback matchup because he doesn't have to go against Carolina's Bradbury. He gets to go up against the slot corner. And I think Pierre Garçon's getting a lot of ownership, and I don't think he's going to do that great. Marquise Goodwin, another cheap one, but this guy's minimum priced. So Marquise Goodwin or Trent Taylor, if you need a cheap wide receiver because you're playing Bell Johnson, you can look into him. But he's very scary to use. I'm barely going to roster him. If I can somehow make lineups with Bell Johnson, he's going to be considered. So that's all. I was just kind of throwing that name out there. Don't yell at me. He's Kyle Shanahan's slot receiver. It's always done well for those guys in the past. Here's a slightly better name for a cheaper, but still a cheap wide receiver, Mike Wallace. Pac-Man Jones is suspended, so he's the secondary is a little bit lightened up. Flacco seems to be healthy. He's pretty much the only one on that team that's healthy. No one's there anymore on that offense. Like, just not. Someone's got to catch the ball, and he's got good rapport with Joe Flacco. So Pac-Man Jones is gone. Joe Flacco takes a lot of deep shots. Mike Wallace is cheap. You need a good wide receiver to get those big running backs in your roster. Mike Wallace is a great pick, I think. Kendall Wright, he's the number 1 wide receiver in Chicago. Big whoop. That just means he gets Desmond Trufant against the Falcons. I think he's going to be over-owned and underproduced. I'd rather use Zach Miller, the tight end for Chicago, which is funny because I completely forgot who the tight end for Chicago was last video. But Atlanta's not good against the tight end. They're really not. They weren't a great defense last year. They got Dontari Poe, which he got cut because a rookie beat him out last year in Kansas City. There's a reason they got rid of him. And they got Trufant back. So if you think Poe and Trufant are enough to turn around that defense, which I think it's a vast improvement, then yeah, but just throwing out another cheap wide receiver that at least gets you potential to get. He's on the field. So he gets targets. He's gonna get looks. I just think Mike Glennon likes his tight ends a little more. So if you don't want to use Kendall Wright and you need to use a really cheap tight end, Zach Miller, free up that cap space for those big running backs. But just throwing out a couple names. And these are, just to finish off, you should already know, but these are quarterback wide receiver stacks. I think I said at the beginning of the video that you win your high tournaments by stacks. I don't always stack, but when I see mismatches or like David Johnson and Bell try to use a wide receiver, a quarterback with a running back or something like that, or a defense running back on the same team is a common one. I really like Arizona with David Johnson this week. So Arizona was top 4 overall defense last year, and they got Tyrann Mathieu fully healthy. So, yeah, I like them. But quarterback wide receiver stacks, pretty much I've been talking about it. So Palmer, Brown, they're going to be my tournament stack. I'm going to use them in GPP. I'm not going to use them in as much cash because John Brown's still a little scary till we see just how healthy he is. He's got a little bit of a hamstring issue. I can only find one article about it, so I think he's fine. And Palmer Fitzy. So I got my Palmer Brown for GPP, and I got my Palmer Fitzy for cash. And that's just your cash being your more reliable, consistent, higher floor. Kirk Cousins, Terrell Pryor, because a lot of people aren't playing Kirk Cousins, still a good fantasy quarterback, but they are playing Terrell Pryor because of his price. This is both a GPP and cash stack, I think. This helps offset Terrell Pryor's high ownership. If you can stack a very good wide receiver at a very low price with their quarterback, yeah, I think you're good. Wilson Baldwin, not much explanation here. It's useful in both cash and GPP. They both have a very good wide receiver quarterback and cornerback matchups with the secondary. So high scoring, as long as you just don't do too much of them, just in case Dom Capers comes out and does the normal defense against Wilson and he throws a bunch of interceptions or doesn't do much. So I'm still going to use them in a little bit of cash and a little bit of GPPs. Car Crabtree. I think people are starting to realize that Crabtree is a red zone target, just a target monster in general, because Cooper gets double teamed or gets the number one cornerback. Crabtree's a linebacker with wide receiver abilities. So I'm not going to use him in too many tournaments. I don't think Crabtree has this massive ceiling, more so of a decent floor. So I'm using this for more GPPs. But I am going to use a little bit of Car Crabtree. Car Cooper, I'm actually going to use my GPPs in a little bit, because, like I said, people are starting to realize Crabtree is good. It might lower the ownership of Cooper. Cooper didn't do much against Tennessee. Oh, I'm sorry, he didn't do anything against Tennessee last year. If you play PPR, I think he got 8 points and Crabtree had 18. So I think Crabtree had 8 catches for 108 yards. Cooper was like 4 and 40. So, but there wasn't a lot of scoring last year. I don't see it being that defensive sided of a game. I don't know, more offense this year going around. So I don't think Cooper's ownership is going to be as high as in previous years. So I think in a shootout with a good wide receiver with lesser ownership, yeah, I'm going to use him. Also because Crabtree is going to have to take some defense, like they're going to have to try to stop him. So I'll use Carr Cooper, just not much, like I said, because so many people are going to play Carr Cooper, Mariota, Rashard Matthews, Mariota, Delaney Walker, stuff like that. I like Mariota, DeMarco Murray. But so this one's for GPP only due to the price and the low ownership, and I've been hinting at it. This one's Big Ben and Martavis Bryant. This way, if Big Ben comes out, he has a good road game, Martavis Bryant should benefit just as well. Everyone knows Brown and Bryant on the field are still amazing. So if Bryant does similarly as well as Brown, then boom, you're good. You got a much more low ownership with a way cheaper price tag for great production. The offense allows a running back, multiple receivers, and your quarterback to be fantasy relevant, this Steelers offense. I know this is a stretch way back when. I had to do a little digging, but in the weeks 3 through 8 of 2015, I know I'm stretching way back, but Le'Veon Bell, that's when he was starting to play. In those weeks, Bryant did amazing. So pretty much in weeks like, I think 3 through 10, he just went off with like one mediocre week in between, and that's when Bell was out there, as like weeks 3 through 8 when Bell was out there. How do you cover everyone? So if they're going to come, and I just see them scoring a lot more on the road when you have your number 2 wide receiver, your number 1 wide receiver, full healthy, Big Ben's healthy, Le'Veon Bell's back, offensive line against a weak defense. I'm going to play this. So the more I talk about it, the more I like it. But this gives you a pivot from Bell and Brown, and it gives you access to that passing attack. It gives you access to Bryant for a cheaper price than Brown. So I'm going to use this in GPP only, though. I'm not going to be using this in cash because Big Ben is still way too expensive. So if you want, I think another good stack is Bell Bryant. So I think I said that earlier. I don't know. I guess I just really like it. I'm not going to do any Rodgers stacks. I'm not doing any Tyrod Taylor stacks. I guess you can do Tyrod LaShawn just because they're a very high rushing team. Tyrod gives you that potential. But I haven't done tight ends this video. I'll do them later. But Mariota, Delaney Walker, Oakland's horrible against tight ends. Russell Wilson, Jimmy Graham. See, Oakland's horrible against tight end. Green Bay is also horrible against tight ends. Pete Carroll wants to use Jimmy Graham as he should be used, not as a blocker. And you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, you say that until they go out there and Russell Wilson's running around for his life. No, Jimmy Graham's actually being pushed as a wideout as he was towards the end of last year. And he was still a phenomenal tight end. He finished high in the rankings as tight end, so like tight end 3 or something. So, yeah, that's all I got as of stacks. I'm trying to give you guys different pivot plays off of those major quarterbacks everyone's talking about and try to fit in other players and other stacks to get you Bell and David Johnson, but also not have the same lineup as everyone. in DraftKings, everyone's going to have Zach Ertz, and he's cheap. So I'll go over my running backs and my tight ends in my next video, but hopefully you like quarterbacks, wide receivers, helped you out a little bit right before the season starts. So thanks for watching.